The last supply ship had left SRO for 3 weeks ago. Since then, the sky had been filled with nothing but enemy vessels. They hung in the darkness like hungry predators, waiting for the right moment to strike. Commander Kira stood at the entrance of the underground shelter and looked at her people. 2 million Veloxi had crowded into these tunnels. They were tired. They were hungry. Many of them were sick. The children had stopped playing days ago. Now they just sat quietly against the cold walls, their large eyes filled with confusion and fear. The Veloxi were a peaceful species. They had blue-green skin that shimmered like water under light. Their bodies were thin and graceful, built for swimming in the great oceans of their homeworld. They were scholars, artists, and healers. They had never wanted war, but war had found them anyway. The Keth Dominion had come without warning. Their massive black ships had blocked out the stars. The Keth were insectoid creatures with hard shells and sharp claws. They conquered worlds not for resources or territory, but simply because they could. They enjoyed watching weaker species suffer. Kira turned away from her people and walked deeper into the command center. Her second officer, a young male named Stories, was monitoring the communication systems. His face looked gray with exhaustion. "Any response?" Kira asked. She already knew the answer. Stories shook his head slowly. "Nothing, Commander. The Galactic Council has not replied to any of our messages." Kira felt her heart sink. The Veloxi had 2 hearts, and right now both of them ached with despair. The Galactic Council was supposed to protect them. That was the whole point of the Alliance. 12 powerful species had come together centuries ago and promised to defend each other. The Veloxi had paid their dues. They had followed every rule. They had trusted in the system, and now that system had abandoned them. "Send another message," Kira said. "Send it directly to Elder Counselor Drex. Tell him we need an answer. Tell him our people are dying." Stories nodded and began typing. The message flew across space at the speed of light, traveling toward the Great Council Station at the center of the galaxy. Hours passed. Kira tried to rest, but sleep would not come. She kept thinking about the children in the shelters. She kept thinking about the old ones who had already given up hope. She kept thinking about her own daughter, who had died in the first attack. Finally, a response came. Kira rushed to the communication screen. The face of Elder Counselor Drex appeared. He was an old Veloxi, with pale skin and tired eyes. He had represented their species on the council for 40 years. Kira had always respected him. Now she just needed him to save them. "Commander Kira," Drex said. His voice was heavy with sadness. "I have spoken to the council. I have begged them for help. I have reminded them of our treaties and our loyalty, and—" Kira asked. Her voice trembled. Drex looked down. He could not meet her eyes. "They voted against intervention. The Aldrani said the Keth are too powerful. The Scythex calculated that saving us would cost more resources than we are worth. The Morvathi called our situation a statistical inevitability." Kira felt the ground shift beneath her feet. "They are going to let us die?" "I am sorry," Drex whispered. "I tried everything. But they have made their decision. The Sorophor is officially considered lost. No help will come." The transmission ended. The screen went dark. Kira stood alone in the command center. She could hear the distant sounds of crying from the shelters. Somewhere, a child was calling for its mother. Somewhere, an old one was praying to gods who were not listening. She walked slowly back to the main shelter. 2 million faces turned toward her. They were waiting for hope. They were waiting for good news. They were waiting for someone to tell them that everything would be okay. Kira opened her mouth to speak. The words were the hardest she had ever said. "The Galactic Council has abandoned us," she said. "No ships are coming. No rescue will arrive. We have 3 weeks of food left. Our shields are failing. The Keth will attack soon." Silence fell over the crowd. Then the crying began. Mothers held their children. Fathers looked at the ground in shame. The elderly closed their eyes and accepted their fate. Kira wanted to cry too. But she was the commander. She had to stay strong. "We will not give up," she said, raising her voice above the sobs. "We are Veluxi. We have survived storms and droughts and disasters. We will survive this too. We will fight until our last breath." But even as she spoke, Kira knew the truth. There was no hope. The galaxy had forgotten them. They were alone. Then something strange happened. An alarm sounded in the command center. Torres came running, his eyes wide with shock. "Commander," he shouted, "our sensors have detected something. Ships. Hundreds of ships. They are entering our star system." Kira's blood went cold. More Keth reinforcements. It was over. "Wait," Torres said, staring at his screen. "These ships are different. They do not match any known design. They are not Keth. They are not from any council species." Before Kira could respond, the communication system crackled to life. A voice filled the chamber. It spoke in a language they had never heard before, but the universal translator quickly processed it. "This is Admiral Jack Morrison of the United Earth Navy. We received your distress call. Hold your position. Help is on the way." Kira stood frozen. Earth. She had never heard of Earth. No one in the galaxy had. But whoever they were coming, and for the first time in weeks, Kira felt something she had forgotten. Hope, Admiral. Jack Morrison stood on the bridge of the UEN steadfast and watched the stars stretch into bright lines as the fleet entered hyperspace. Around him, 400 warships were traveling faster than light, racing toward a planet they had never seen to save a species they had never met. It was crazy. Jack knew that. His officers knew that. The entire United Earth Parliament knew that. But they were doing it anyway. Commander Laura Kim walked up beside him. She was his tactical officer, a sharp woman with short black hair and calm eyes. She had served with Jack for 15 years. "Admiral," she said quietly, "I have finished running the simulations. Our chances of victory are about 40%. Jack nodded slowly. "And the chances of the Veluxi surviving if we do not go?" Laura looked at her tablet. 0%, sir." "Then 40% sounds pretty good to me." Laura almost smiled. "Almost. The crew is ready. They know what we are facing. They know the risks. They are scared, but they are not backing down." Jack turned to look at the bridge crew. Lieutenant Ben Carter was at the communications station, monitoring signals from across the fleet. Chief Engineer Sam Reyes was checking power levels, making sure the engines could handle the strain. Weapons Officer Megan Torres was running final checks on the missile systems. They were young. Most of them were young. Humanity had only discovered faster-than-light travel 30 years ago. They were still learning, still growing, still figuring out their place in a galaxy that did not want them. The Galactic Council had made that very clear. Jack remembered the day human ambassadors first made contact with the Council. They had been so excited, so hopeful. They thought they were joining a great family of species, working together for peace and progress. Instead, they were told to go home. The elder races called humanity primitive, aggressive, dangerous. They said humans needed to wait 500 years before they could even apply for membership. 500 years of sitting quietly in their own little corner of space while the rest of the galaxy went on without them. The United Earth. Parliament had politely thanked the Council for their consideration. Then they had gone home and built the largest military fleet any species had ever created in such a short time. Humans did not like being told to wait. Jack walked to the main viewing screen and stared at the blue swirl of hyperspace. Somewhere ahead, millions of innocent people were dying. Somewhere ahead, peaceful species was being wiped out, while the so-called civilized galaxy watched and did nothing. That was not something humans could accept 3 days ago. The deep space relay stations had picked up a signal. It was a distress call from a species called the Veluxi. They were begging for help. They were begging anyone to save them from the Keth's dominion. The signal had been broadcasting for weeks. The Galactic Council had heard it. They had analyzed it. They had discussed it in their great chambers, with their careful words and their careful calculations, and they had decided to ignore it. But humans heard it too. The United Earth Parliament had called an emergency session. Representatives from every nation on Earth had gathered to discuss what to do. Some said it was not their problem. Some said humanity was too weak to fight the Keth. Some said the risks were too high. But most of them said something else. They said that helping people in need was not optional. They said that the strong had a duty to protect the weak. They said that standing by while innocents died was the same as killing them yourself. The vote passed in 6 hours. The fleet launched 12 hours later. Now Jack Morrison was leading 400 ships into battle against one of the most feared empires in the galaxy. His technology was inferior. His numbers were smaller. His species was considered beneath notice by everyone who mattered. But he was going anyway. Sam Reyes approached with a worried look on his face. "Admiral, I have to be honest with you. Our ships are not as advanced as the Keth vessels. Their armor is stronger. Their weapons hit harder. Their shields can take more damage." Jack nodded. "I know. We might lose a lot of people today." "I know that too." Sam hesitated. "Then why are we doing this?" Jack was quiet for a long moment. He thought about his own family back on Earth. He thought about his daughter, who was 8 years old and loved to watch the stars from her bedroom window. He thought about all the children on Nezero, for who were just like her. "Because if we do not go," Jack said slowly, "then we are no better than the Council. We are no better than the species who turned away and let those people die. And I refuse to live in a galaxy where that is acceptable." Sam stared at him. Then he nodded firmly. "Understood, Admiral. I will make sure the engines are ready for anything." He walked away. Jack turned back to the viewing screen. Megan Torres spoke up from her station. "Sir, we are approaching the exit point. The Sora 4 is 30 seconds away." Jack took a deep breath. "All ships prepare for combat. Remember what we are fighting for. Remember who we are." He pressed the fleet-wide broadcast button. "This is Admiral Morrison. In 30 seconds, we will arrive at the Sora 4. We will face an enemy that is stronger than us. We will face odds that look impossible. But we are humans. And humans do not abandon people who need help." He paused. "Today we showed the galaxy what that means." The fleet dropped out of hyperspace. The stars returned to normal, and directly ahead, the dark shapes of Keth warships filled the screen. Jack Morrison looked at his enemy. "All ships," he said calmly. "Attack." The human fleet burst out of hyperspace like a wave crashing against the shore. 400 ships spread across the darkness, their engines glowing bright blue against the black of space. They formed into tight groups, moving with speed and purpose toward the Keth blockade. High Commander Vexter of the Keth Dominion watched the newcomers from his massive command vessel. His compound eyes studied the strange ships with curiosity and confusion. He had never seen designs like these before. They were rough and ugly, built with straight lines and sharp angles, instead of the smooth curves that most civilized species used. His second officer clicked nervously beside him. "High Commander, who are these creatures?" "They do not match any species in our database." Vexter waved one of his clawed hands dismissively. "It does not matter who they are. Look at their ships. Their armor is thin. Their weapons are primitive. They are insects trying to fight giants." He ordered his communication officer to send a message. The transmission went out on all frequencies, making sure both the humans and the Veluxi could hear. "Unknown vessels," Vexter said, his voice cold and hard. "You have entered Keth space. Leave now, or you will be destroyed. This is your only warning." A moment passed. Then a reply came through. This is Admiral Jack Morrison of the United Earth Navy. The human's voice was calm and steady. "We are not here to negotiate. We are here to evacuate civilians. Stand down your blockade, or we will break it." Vexter let out a harsh laugh that sounded like rocks grinding together. "You will break it? With those pathetic ships? You must be joking." "I never joke about saving lives," the human replied. "You have 30 seconds to move your fleet. After that, we are coming through whether you like it or not." Vexter ended the transmission. He turned to his officers with amusement in his eyes. "These creatures are either very brave or very stupid. Either way, they will die today." All ships, attack formation. Destroy them all. The Keth fleet moved forward. 200 warships, each one bigger and more powerful than anything the humans had brought. Their dark hulls absorbed the light of nearby stars. Their weapons charged with deadly energy. Admiral Morrison watched them come. His jaw was tight, but his hands were steady. All ships, he ordered, begin wolfpack maneuvers. Destroyers move to flanking positions. Cruisers focus fire on their engines. Dreadnoughts punch a hole through their center. The human fleet did not wait to be attacked. They charged forward, splitting into dozens of smaller groups that darted and weaved through space. The Keth expected the humans to hold formation and fight in straight lines like every other species they had conquered. They were wrong. Human ships flew in patterns the Keth had never seen. Small destroyers would race toward a Keth vessel, firing missiles and drawing attention. Then larger cruisers would strike from the side, targeting weak points in the enemy armor. It was chaos, but it was controlled chaos. It was the way wolves hunted prey much larger than themselves. Captain Ryan Brooks commanded a squadron of 12 destroyers. His ships were fast but fragile. One good hit from a Keth cannon would tear them apart. But Ryan did not care about safety. He cared about winning. "All right, people," he said over the radio. "Let's show these bugs how we fight. Stay quick, stay low, and never stop moving." His squadron dove toward a Keth carrier 3 times their size. Missiles flew. Explosions bloomed against the enemy hull. The carrier tried to turn its guns toward them, but the destroyers were already gone, racing away before circling back for another strike. On the other side of the battle, Lieutenant Hannah Cole was flying a fighter jet through the madness. She was 24 years old and had dreamed of being a pilot since she was a child. Now she was weaving between giant warships, dodging energy beams that could destroy her in an instant. "I see an opening," she reported. "Enemy carrier has a damaged hangar. I am going in." "Hannah, that is suicide," her wing commander warned. "Maybe," she replied. "But if I take out their fighters, our transports have a clear path to the planet." She did not wait for permission. She pushed her throttle forward and flew straight into the enemy hangar. Inside, dozens of Keth fighters were preparing to launch. Hannah fired everything she had. Missiles, cannons, everything. The hangar exploded in a ball of fire. Hannah barely made it out. Her ship was damaged, trailing smoke and sparks. But behind her, the carrier was crippled. Its fighters would never launch. The battle raged for 2 hours. Human ships fell. Crews died. The UN Defiance, a heavy cruiser commanded by Captain Chris Lane, took a direct hit to its bridge. Chris was killed instantly. But his crew kept fighting, driving their wounded ship straight into the side of a Keth battleship. Both vessels exploded together. The humans did not retreat. They did not calculate acceptable losses. They did not run. They fought, and slowly, impossibly. The Keth line began to break. High Commander Vexter could not believe what he was seeing. His superior fleet was being torn apart by primitives. Ships that should have been destroyed in seconds were still firing. Crews that should have surrendered were fighting to the death. "What are these creatures?" he whispered. His question would never be answered. A human missile struck his command vessel. The explosion ripped through the hull. Vexter died without understanding what had happened, with their command ship destroyed. The Keth fleet fell into confusion. Human ships pressed the attack, pushing forward, pushing harder. The blockade shattered. Admiral Morrison looked at the burning remains of the enemy fleet. The path to the HFY was clear. "All transport ships," he ordered, "begin descent. It is time to bring those people home." The first human transport ship broke through the clouds of the HFY just as the sun was rising. Commander Kira stood at the entrance of the underground shelter and watched it descend. The ship was large and gray, with strange markings on its side that she could not read. It landed on the ruined field outside the shelter, kicking up dust and debris. For a long moment, nothing happened. The Veluxi watched in silence, afraid to hope, afraid to believe that rescue had truly come. Then the cargo doors opened. Soldiers marched out in neat lines. They wore green and brown uniforms with strange helmets that covered their faces. They carried supplies on their backs and weapons at their sides. Behind them came more soldiers pushing carts filled with food, water, medical equipment. Kira had never seen creatures like these before. They walked on two legs like the Veluxi, but they were taller and broader. Their skin came in different shades of brown and pink. Their eyes were small, but bright with intelligence. One of them approached her. He removed his helmet, revealing a young face with short brown hair and tired eyes. He smiled in a way that seemed meant to be friendly. "Ah, ma'am," he said, his voice translated through a small device on his collar. "I am Sergeant Danny Vance, United Earth Marines. We are here to get your people to safety." Kira stared at him. Her mouth opened, but no words came out. After weeks of fear and despair, after being abandoned by everyone she trusted, this stranger from an unknown world was offering salvation. "Why?" she finally asked. "Why did you come? You do not know us. You owe us nothing." Danny Vance looked at her with soft eyes. "You asked for help?" he said simply. That was enough. He turned and waved his soldiers forward. They spread out across the shelter area, handing out food and water to the refugees. The Veloxi reached for the supplies with trembling hands. Children grabbed the food and ate hungrily. Mothers wept with relief. More transport ships arrived. Dozens of them, filling the sky like a flock of great metal birds. Human soldiers poured out, working quickly and efficiently. They set up tents. They created pathways for the refugees to follow. They organized the evacuation with a precision that amazed Kira. Dr. Emma Shaw landed with the third wave of ships. She was a woman with red hair tied back in a ponytail and circles under her eyes from too little sleep. She carried a medical bag that was almost as big as she was. "Set up the field hospital here," she ordered her team, pointing to a clear area near the shelter entrance. "I want triage stations ready in 10 minutes. We have millions of patients and not much time." The medical team worked fast. Within an hour, they had created a full treatment center with beds and equipment and medicine. Veluxi, who had been sick for weeks, were finally receiving care. Injuries that had gone untreated were cleaned and bandaged. The dying were given comfort. The living were given hope. Emma worked without rest. She moved from patient to patient, treating each one with gentle hands and kind words. She did not speak the Veluxi language, but the translator on her collar carried her voice, and her eyes carried her compassion. An elderly Veluxi male grabbed her hand as she finished treating his wounds. "Thank you," he whispered. "Thank you for not forgetting us." Emma squeezed his hand gently. "We never forget," she said. "That is not who we are." Sergeant Danny Vance led his team deeper into the shelter tunnels, searching for survivors who were too weak to walk on their own. The tunnels were dark and cold. The air smelled of sickness and fear. But Danny and his soldiers pressed forward, carrying flashlights and stretchers. They found families huddled in corners. They found children who had been separated from their parents. They found elderly Veluxi who had given up hope and were waiting to die. Danny carried them out himself. He lifted children onto his shoulders. He helped the elderly walk, supporting them with his own body when their legs failed. His soldiers did the same. At one point, Danny found a young Veluxi girl collapsed on the tunnel floor. She was barely breathing. Her skin was pale and cold. She had been starving for too long. "A medic!" Danny shouted. "I need a medic here now." He picked up the girl and ran. He ran through the tunnels, through the crowds, all the way to the field hospital. He would not stop. He would not slow down. This child was going to live. Dr. Emma Shaw took the girl from his arms and immediately began treatment. An hour later, the girl opened her eyes. She looked up at the strange creatures around her with confusion. "You are safe now," Emma told her through the translator. "You are going to be okay." The evacuation continued for 4 days. Human soldiers worked around the clock, never stopping, never complaining. They carried the weak. They fed the hungry. They comforted the scared. They treated every Veluxi life as if it were as valuable as their own. Admiral Morrison landed on the final day to oversee the last transports. Commander Kira met him at his ship. She looked different now. The despair in her eyes had been replaced by something else: gratitude, wonder, and a question she needed to answer. "Admiral," she said, "I must know. Your people have sacrificed so much for us. Your soldiers have died to protect strangers. Why? What do you gain from this?" Morrison looked across the field at the lines of refugees boarding the transport ships. Veluxy families were climbing the ramps, looking back at their ruined world one last time before leaving forever. "Commander," he said quietly, "we do not help people because we gain something. We help people because someone should. And when the rest of the galaxy refused to answer your call, we decided that someone had to be us." Behind them, a warning siren began to wail. Sensors had detected Keth reinforcements entering the system. The enemy was coming back. Captain Alex Grant's voice came over the radio. "Admiral, I am taking the rear guard out to meet them. You get those transports to safety. We will hold them off." Morrison closed his eyes. "Alex, you know what that means?" "I know, sir." Alex's voice was calm. "Get those people home. That is an order." The rearguard fleet turned and flew toward the incoming Keth ships. They were outnumbered 10-1. They fought anyway. Captain Alex Grant's final transmission came just as the last transport jumped to safety. "All transports away, Admiral. Mission accomplished." Then his ship exploded, and the transmission ended. Every single Veluxy survivor made it off. This RO4. 2 million lives were saved. The cost was 147. Human ships and over 20,000 human lives. Admiral. Morrison would carry their names forever. The Great Chamber of the Galactic Council was the largest meeting hall in the known universe. Its walls stretched upward for hundreds of meters, covered in the flags and symbols of 12 ancient species. Holographic displays floated in the air, showing star maps and trade routes and population statistics. This was where the most powerful beings in the galaxy gathered to decide the fate of trillions. Today, the chamber was filled with anger. Ambassador Kate Sullivan stood alone at the center of the speaker's platform. She was a woman of 43 years, with brown skin, gray-streaked hair, and eyes that showed no fear. She wore the simple blue uniform of Earth's diplomatic corps, a stark contrast to the elaborate robes worn by the alien counselors around her. The Aldrani counselor spoke first. He was a tall creature with silver skin and 4 arms that waved with agitation as he talked. "This is an outrage," he declared. "Humanity has violated 17 treaties, engaged in unauthorized military action, and disrupted the natural order of galactic affairs." The Scythex representative added her voice, her mechanical body clicking in worry. "Our calculations show that human interference has created instability in the Keth border regions. The probability of expanded conflict has increased by 47%. The Morvathi Elder, an ancient being that resembled a floating cloud of light, pulsed with disapproval. The humans were told to remain in their designated space. They were told to wait. They have shown themselves to be exactly what we feared: aggressive, impulsive, dangerous." Kate Sullivan listened to all of it. She stood perfectly still, her hands clasped behind her back, her face revealing nothing. The counselors expected her to apologize. They expected her to beg for forgiveness. They expected her to promise that humanity would never do such a thing again. They did not know humans very well. When the counselors finished their complaints, Kate took a single step forward. "May I speak now?" she asked calmly. The Aldrani counselor waved one of his hands impatiently. "You may explain yourself, if such an explanation exists." Kate nodded. Then she raised her hand and activated a holographic display. Images appeared in the air. Images from the Sarafor. Images of starving children. Images of mass graves. Images of Veluxy families huddled in dark tunnels, waiting for death. Images of the distress calls that had been sent to this very chamber, begging for help that never came. "These are the people you abandoned," Kate said. Her voice was soft but carried to every corner of the great hall. 2 million lives. Mothers and fathers and children. They called out to you. They trusted you. They believed in your alliance and your promises. She paused, letting the images hover in silence. And you ran the numbers. You calculated that they were not worth saving. You decided that their lives were a statistical inevitability. The Scythex representative tried to interrupt. The situation was complex. The variables had to be considered. The Keth Dominion presented significant risk factors that what? Kate cut her off. That made it easier to let them die? That made it acceptable to turn away while innocents were slaughtered? The chamber fell silent. Kate walked slowly around the platform, making eye contact with each counselor in turn. You call yourselves the Galactic Council. You speak of unity and cooperation and mutual defense. You have rules and treaties and careful words for every situation. But when it matters, when people are dying and crying out for help, your rules become excuses. Your treaties become shields. Your words become lies. She stopped at the center of the platform and stood tall. Humanity is different. The Morvathi elder flickered with irritation. Humanity is young and foolish. You do not understand how the galaxy works. You do not see the bigger picture. Oh, I see it clearly, Kate replied. I see a galaxy where the powerful protect themselves and abandon the weak. I see a galaxy where calculations matter more than compassion. I see a galaxy that has forgotten what it means to do the right thing simply because it is right. She shook her head slowly. It will never be part of that galaxy. The Aldrani counselor leaned forward. Then what do you propose? That humanity will save everyone who asks? That you will fight every battle and protect every helpless species? You do not have the resources. You do not have the strength, Kate smiled. It was not a friendly smile. We have something better, she said. We have will. We have courage. We have the understanding that some things are more important than resources and calculations and political convenience. She pressed a button on her display, and new images appeared. The Veluxi refugees arriving at their new home on a human colony world. The Luxi children playing with human children in green parks. Veluxi families eating meals provided by human volunteers. Two species, strangers just weeks ago, now learning to be neighbors. This is what happens when you answer a call for help, Kate said. This is what happens when you choose compassion over calculation. The chamber was completely silent now. Every counselor was watching. Every species was listening. Kate took a deep breath and delivered her final message. Here is what humanity wants you to understand. We do not care about your treaties. We do not care about your rules. We do not care about your approval. If you abandon your own people, we will be there to pick them up. If you refuse to protect the weak, we will protect them ourselves. She paused. And if you try to stop us, we will go through you too. The Aldrani counselor's eyes went wide. Is that a threat? It is a promise, Kate said simply. The galaxy has watched us fight an empire and win. It has watched us sacrifice our own to save strangers. It knows what we are capable of. And now it knows that we are not afraid. She turned off the holographic display and prepared to leave. This council can issue sanctions. It can condemn us. It can pretend that we are the problem. But the people of the galaxy will see the truth. They will see who answered when help was needed. They will see who stood up when everyone else sat down. She walked toward the exit, then stopped and looked back one more time. We are not asking for your permission to help people. We are informing you that we will do it anyway. Humanity is now part of this galaxy, whether you like it or not, and we are going to make it better. Kate Sullivan walked out of the great chamber. The doors closed behind her. Inside, the counselors began arguing among themselves. But outside, across the galaxy, something else was happening. On dozens of worlds. Species who had been ignored and forgotten and abandoned were watching the broadcast. They had heard Kate Sullivan's words. They had seen what humans were willing to do, and one by one began transmitting messages to Earth, not requests for membership in the council, not pleas for attention from the elder races, messages asking for friends. Humanity had entered the galactic stage as something no one expected, not conquerors, not beggars, not children waiting for permission to grow up. Protectors, and the galaxy would never be the same.